right, hi everyone, all of my gentle people. I'm back. I finally got the studio moved and all set up, and happy to be back online for sure. For as many of you already know, this has been a long time coming. But before we get started, I just want to cover a couple of things just to make sure that everyone is actually pretty prepared to get the most out of this whole chat and discussion. So first thing to keep in mind is advice is not one size fits all. It's really not. We all have our own unique experiences and our own dreams that are true to ourselves. And with that being said, advice is not always going to fit perfectly. So we are going to have to just keep that in mind. If we need to make some tweaks, we need to make some tweaks. If it doesn't apply to us, it doesn't apply to us. And with that being said, don't be a douche waffle in the chat. Others may struggle in areas that you think are super, super easy. It's not easy for someone else. So just be very kind and considerate in the chat is all I ask. And make sure you have a notebook and pen out. I will give you a minute to get that. It can be a sketchbook if you want. But the biggest thing is that when you write down notes, even if they're quick jots or quick scribbles, it passes through more areas of the brain and that improves our retention. The other thing too is we will have an activity through the workshop. But then also I highly, highly encourage you guys to participate in the chat. Like this is, don't let me just be talking at you this entire time. Definitely participate in the chat. And if it's something that you are struggling with, feel free to share your experiences and share your insights on it. If it's a challenge that you've overcome and you want to share your experience, by all means. For those who are taking rigorous notes, there are going to be quite a few slides where we actually pause on and discuss in a little bit more depth. So definitely make sure you have your chat pod out and handy and you have your notebook. With your notebook, I want you guys to do a couple of things. First, I want you to write down 3 things that are currently challenging you. Things that are currently either presenting difficulties or things that you want to improve on right away. Once again, these can just be quick jots if you want. And then once you get that done, write down 2 major professional goals. Like, I want to be a comic inker, or I want to be an animator, or I want to be able to work at a company and take commissions on the side. But write down 2 major professional goals that you have. It can even be as simple as being able to manage my own schedule. And then once you get that done, write down just 1 absolute dream. If that's meeting a hero, if that's reaching a specific audience, whatever the case is, write down that 1 dream that you hold close to your heart. And leave some space in between them so that way as we roll through the discussions, you guys have a chance to write down what applies to those, also what applies to you and your challenges that you didn't write down. So definitely make sure you have your notebook handy for that. For those that requested accessibility, transcripts of this workshop will be available upon request. I will send out emails to those I know that have requested. If not, shoot me a DM and I will see to it that you get emailed a transcript. As well as a copy of the slideshow. That is also going to be available upon request. But all right, so while you guys are doing that real quick, when I say this has been a long time coming, what I mean to say is this has been a long time coming. So this workshop specifically has been previously community exclusive to Drawholics Anonymous. And I want to say the first one was back in 2018. And since then, it's just been evolving and growing. It's been a collaboration of so many insights and individuals contributing to this workshop. So everything you're hearing is not only my own experiences as a growing artist, as a graduated art student, but also my experience in the art industry, including being a production artist, art director, and then I've also been an art mentor for probably about 5 or 6 years now. Like I want to say about my second year in school, I started being a mentor. So being able to do this for the public, I want you guys to know how much it means to me to open this up. But then also, I sent out a survey late last year. I launched it actually at CTN, and you guys contributed so much information for this workshop. Thank you to everyone who filled out that survey, everyone who was thorough and honest about what they were struggling with, because we're going to hit a lot of those notes today, and I will re-review everything. I got some questions marked down that were asked in the survey, but like I said before, don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat as they come up. So, if you guys are ready to get started, I got my tea, so excuse me. So the first and foremost thing about learning and growing as an artist is to put down your preconceived notions. So preconceived notions in general are a way that we can quickly assess and associate if something is a risk or if something is worth our time. And unfortunately, that works against us when we're learning. So sitting here saying, oh, I already know composition, I don't need a composition class. One, you might be fooling yourself and you actually do need it. Two, you're missing out on an opportunity to round out your knowledge. So any previous experience you have, don't let that stop you from listening to what we're talking about today. And if anything, if you do already know it, you may see it from a different light, or you may see that there were holes that you were missing before. But as with anything, you can always take it with a grain of salt, because once again, everyone's art journey is different. And then that is the other thing too. The art industry is consistently evolving. It's not the only industry, just as much as technology has changed. I remember when flip phones came out and they weren't super, super big, and we were still texting with the QWERTY keyboard, and it taking 5 minutes to type one sentence because you got to go 333 444. Technology changes super, super fast. Art it has, over the centuries, as long as there has been art, has consistently changed. So always be open to new insights and new variables, and always be open to trying new things. All right. Aesthetic Derelict says, an industry evolves and there is always something new to learn. We should never be so arrogant to assume we know everything there is to know. Correct. What's that Athenian philosophy? The true key to wisdom is assuming you know nothing. All right. One of the biggest things I saw as a student success mentor is adults forgetting how to learn. This is this is like one of the biggest components of this entire workshop, is we have to relearn how to learn. Because as we grow into teens, we start seeing that there's expectations of life, that we got to get a house, we got to get a car, we got to be able to financially support ourselves. If we have parents that want grandbabies, we got to have babies. Either way, we lose sight of what it means to learn like a kid again. To be so excited just at something new, that we get pressured into believing that we need to know everything. So when we want to start something new, like, hey, we want to start an art career, that is personally difficult for a lot of people because I should know everything. I'm an adult. I am responsible. I am a capable human being. Why am I going to art school? Why do I need to go to art school? Because you don't know how to do art. We should constantly be learning and growing, as that's the adventure in life, is trying new things and going new places. And so to kind of help elaborate on some of the things about learning to remember is, one, you got to be ready to accept new information, to absorb new information. Once again, don't presume that you know everything, and also be open to these things that are being presented to you. If you are nervous to be in a classroom, because once again, you should know everything, you're an adult, you're going to find that you are missing out on some of the principles that are being taught because you're busy telling yourself, I don't need to listen to this. You're in class for a reason. It's okay to say, oh, I didn't know about this. The second biggest thing is it's supposed to be challenging at first. You don't know how to do it. You don't know how to do it. That's why you're learning it. Of course you're gonna suck at first. It's as simple as that. Is that a bad thing? No, it is not. Once again, hundreds of students have had this struggle where they're in the foundations classes and they're like, I'm struggling to draw the human body. I don't know if I can do this. You're there to learn how to draw the human body. Of course you're struggling. So the key is to be observant of what is being taught to you and then to exercise what is being taught to you. That's the most important part because you can watch videos all day long. You can watch YouTube tutorials all day long. Until you actually sit down and go through the motions yourself, you're not actually truly going to learn it and absorb it. So suck it first and then practice what you suck at. And I can guarantee you're not going to suck at it for very long. So always exercise that new knowledge because it will drift away on you. And even if you exercise it, sometimes we get overstimulated with education where we get so many things thrown at us that stuff slips through the cracks. That's where always be willing to revisit the basics. And then also your peers and your idols are GPSs. Let them guide you. Learn from each other. Definitely bounce off of each other, push each other in a way that, like, oh, I did my homework last night and it's not due for another 4 days. It's like, oh, shoot, dude, I got to catch up with you. But when I say they're GPS, anyone who struggles with imposter syndrome knows exactly what I'm talking about. That sometimes it can be overwhelming being around your coworkers and your fellow students, that you feel very underqualified to be even in the same room as them. But let them be your guide. Yes, they're all at different skill levels. Yes, you're at your own skill level in your own journey. That doesn't make you worth any less of an artist. But it's important to still watch what they're doing because you can learn so much from them. And even if you are one of the better ones in the class, still learn from your peers because you don't know what you're missing. You don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it. And then let go of expectations long enough to enjoy what you're learning. Don't, sorry, trying to put this together in my head. There are some students out there, and you know who you are, who are very, very focused on getting good grades. You're so focused and so stressed on meeting the expectations of the instructor and the teacher that you lose sight of why you're in the class and you no longer enjoy actually doing the assignments and actually doing the homework or doing the projects that you're working on because you're so focused on meeting others' expectations. It's good to know what's expected of you, but don't let it be your driving force. And aesthetic derelict, sometimes I feel the idea of the time it takes to learn can also be daunting, almost like lacking the free time of childhood makes learning anything new more intimidating. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And that's where that actually falls under the expectation category, where it says it should take a couple of years for me to become a professional artist. What if I don't have a couple of years to get a professional income? That's where balancing work, life, and education, we will definitely cover that a bit later. But yes, it is extremely daunting. And so being able to, like I said, being able to not focus solely on our limited existential time left on this planet is important. Corner Lady says, preach it! Absolutely. That's what we're doing all night long. All right. Another thing that has come up in conversations with students before, or even online, where someone posts an artwork and someone says, oh, this looks great, but I can see where you need to practice anatomy a little bit. And that person says, why are you even commenting? And take it completely personally and off the wall, where that was an objective comment. It was taken as subjective. It's my style. Yes. Oh, it's just my style. Stop it. Yes. So I want to clarify, and this has helped a lot of students before. There's a difference between being subjective and objective. When receiving feedback about your art, you did put a lot of time and effort and energy, and you worked so hard to make it just the way it is. When you're growing as an artist, it's important to be open to feedback. And even though you put all this time and effort and energy, it wasn't wasted. It's not wasted to hear, hey, you could probably practice hands a little bit more. It's absolutely not wasted to hear that, as that is an objective feedback, and that's the kind of feedback that we need to grow as artists. It's very important not to take feedback personally. Now, if someone says, bases their feedback entirely off of their opinion, like, oh, I only like anime, I don't see why you're doing this. That's extremely subjective. You don't have to take that one. You can just brush that off to the side. If someone says, oh, I really like this work, that is also very subjective. It doesn't necessarily help you grow as an artist, but sometimes it feels good to hear stuff like that. And you're going to be hearing me say this a lot throughout the entire course. This is something that takes time and practice to do, to be able to separate your feelings from your learning adventure, from your learning experience, to listen to what your instructors say objectively, that, oh, it's not that you're not capable of being in the industry, you're just still learning and growing. It is going to take practice if you do struggle to separate your personal feelings from your practice and your homework. And just like riding a bike, there's a time and place for everything. So, sorry. I had to. All right. I'm going to throw some technicals at you guys before we get to talking about the good and juicy stuff, before we get to, talking about anxiety and ADHD and how in the heck do I actually juggle all of the things. I'm going to throw some technicals. I'm going to throw some objective information so that way you guys can better understand how your brain functions. All right, so everything we do is a habit. Me talking with my hands is a habit. That being able to non-verbally communicate while verbally communicating to accentuate what I'm saying or further elaborate on the point at hand. But Habits are the basis of everything we do every day. They can be, like I said, they can be as superficial as talking with your hands or making a cup of coffee in the morning. The process when you take a shower, do you wash your hair first or do you wash your armpits first? Those are all habits. But the little known habits, the invisible habits, are our reactions, our thought processes. When our instructor calls us into a virtual meeting, hey, can you come meet with me 2 o'clock Wednesday? What? Why do I need to come in? What's our thought process? We're freaking out. Why are they talking to us? I mean, like, why do they want to talk to us specifically in private? Is this, did I do something wrong? Did my homework suck so badly that they need to tell me that I fail personally? What our thought processes that we take in situations are also habits. The other thing that are habits is complex skills. Going back to the bike, you're riding a bike. First you got to learn how to sit on a bike and pedal at the same time. You got to learn how to balance. You got to learn how to turn without falling over. You got to learn how to look up so you can see where you're going and not run into anything while you're maneuvering the bike. And each aspect of a skill like that builds on itself as habits. So being able to balance becomes a habit. Being able to turn when you want to turn is a habit. Going for the grass when you're about to fall is a habit. It's a reaction, but it's a habit. At its core, building up complex skills is habits. With habits in mind, each habit is a pathway. It is a pathway in the brain that the brain quickly flips on. This is how we conserve mental energy during the day, is being able to flip these quick switches on. With that being said, that they are also neurological pathways. It was previously believed, like when I was growing up, it's like, oh, I better learn what I can now because by the time I hit adulthood, my brain's done and it's going to stop growing and that's it and that's all I have. That's no longer true. Modern medical imaging is a beautiful thing, and they have been learning over the past few decades that it is indeed true that the brain does not stop growing. Our body is consistently replacing cells every day, every week, every month, every year. It is renewing damaged cells. So our brain is constantly regenerating these new cells. And when it does that, because every cell in the brain is essentially a part of a neural network, it will build new networks. It determines these new networks based on your current activities. So one of the examples I have there is a high schooler working at Chick-fil-A. I mean, like, yeah, that about fits. If the brain did not evolve and adapt as things progressed, as time went on, how is it he was able to start his own business or start a family and be a successful provider and father? How was he able to do that if his brain never grew or developed? Because if it stopped growing while he was working at Chick-fil-A, he should theoretically still be at Chick-fil-A with nothing much changed. Now, some people enjoy working at Chick-fil-A. That's fine. We're not hating on Chick-fil-A. Okay, just as an example, you're not the same person you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You're going to constantly grow and change, and that's not a bad thing. I do also, in terms of neuroplasticity, I want to throw out a couple of studies that I am constantly quoting. One of the studies was to see how habits grow and change over time. And what they did was, of course, they took 3 groups. One group was a control group. Everyone in the groups were jugglers. And the jugglers in the control group were asked, just keep juggling every day, keep doing what you're doing, come in periodically for imaging, for testing so we can see how things are progressing. One group was told to entirely stop juggling And the third group was told to think about juggling, to go through the motions in their mind, but not actually physically perform the actions. And what they found was the areas of the brain that lit up when they were juggling diminished over time when they stopped. It diminished a little bit, but not as entirely when they were thinking about it, at least thinking about it. They still retained some of those pathways, but if they completely stopped thinking about it, they lost nearly all activity entirely in that area of the brain that they juggled with. And then, of course, those that continued to juggle had no diminishment whatsoever. And so what that means for us is we can literally turn our biggest challenges into our strongest suits, our strongest traits. We can literally turn them into superpowers. Everything you're struggling with now does not have to continue to be a struggle. The way to hardwire, essentially, this is like with the jugglers, your actions, they have the most governance. If I had to say 80% action, 20% thought. Your thoughts can get you going, but if you act quickly, act before you can talk yourself out of it, you know what I'm saying? Like do a little countdown, 3, 2, 1, go, and actually go. But going through the motions, doing the actions, even if you don't necessarily feel like it, will promote those pathways, making it easier as you go. So by making, plans of practice and by practicing things very, very regularly on a daily basis, you will indeed build these pathways to where it becomes a part of your repertoire. And you look back and you're wondering, this is really easy now. Like, I don't know why I struggled with it for so long. So, in a very literal sense, what is hard today will be easier tomorrow by practicing it regularly. And that includes inner voices. That actually does include inner voices and your thought processes and what your reactions. Just as, okay, I just need to pull out some human figure reference and I just need to draw today. I just need to get my 1 hour done and I'm done. Just as you do that, you can do it with your inner voices. And eventually, you will gain more control over them. It'll be hard at first, but the more you do it, just like, we say brain pathways, just like paths in a park or on a hiking trail, those paths that are more frequently walked are clearer. The same thing's going to happen in your head. And if you want paths to go away, like I don't want to keep dealing with imposter syndrome, you learn to handle that emotionally and you start thinking about it less. When you start, like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I belong here. Okay, shut up. And the more you do that, the less you're going to feel like an imposter because you are no longer walking down that line of thinking. So that path is essentially being reclaimed by nature. And as I'm sure you guys are all wondering, how long is it going to take for things to get easier? It's the 777 rule, and it just so happens to be lucky number 7 for the jackpot, or however you want to word that for yourself. Variably, it takes 7 months to have a perfectly formed, healthy habit in line. 7 days is the first milestone. The first week is always going to be the hardest because this is when you are transitioning from old habits to newer habits. So of course it's going to feel odd. It's going to feel different. You're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to wonder why you're doing it. Keep trudging through it. Because at 7 weeks, it no longer is necessarily difficult. You still have to consciously perform the actions. You still have to consciously decide to go do the things, but you no longer need to fight yourself over it. It is a much smoother thing to get started drawing for the day. But you still have to maintain that habit, but at this time you also know it well enough to the point that you can start adding on to it. So say you're in character design and you're practicing the human body. After a couple of months, you can start comfortably doing clothed figure and not lose sight of the anatomy underneath the clothes. Kind of see what I'm saying there? And then after 7 months, this habit is well ingrained and you don't even think about it anymore. And you're even singing your own tune with this habit. You'll definitely be looking back at yourself 7 months ago and being like, what took you so long to get started? Kind of throwing really off the wall thing. The same thing is necessary to remove bad habits and habits you don't want. One of the most common ones is smoking and nicotine addiction. The addiction, of course, is its own can of worms, but let's say you are smoking, the same thing applies to stopping smoking. After 7 days, you're going to be about ready to knock someone out the first glance they give your way. After 7 weeks, you still kind of crave a cigarette, but at the same time, not so much. You're able to say no a lot easier. And after 7 months, you don't even have a desire. You walk by someone else as they're outside lighting one up, and you don't even care anymore. You just walk by and you're like, you know what? That was a messy habit. That habit stank. I don't know why I even started in the first place. Guess what? True story. But yes, so for forming good habits, for deprogramming bad habits, this is the same timeline that you can safely expect, even if you're neurospicy. These still apply. The important thing while you're reforming your habits is to just put one foot in front of the other. Now, there are going to be times where you mess up, or something comes up and you can't do it at all for the weekend, or you get sick for a week or two. That's normal. That's life. That's okay. What's important is when you return to work, you return to doing that habit. Neurospicy, that's a new one. I've been hearing that one more and more, and I absolutely adore it, because yes, neurospicy thoughts happen all the time. All right. So do you guys have any questions so far on the 777 rule or the principles of a habit? Because like I said, this is going to be super important as we move forward, because this is the core of how you can learn and grow and improve your productivity and adhere to your own schedule and build on your skills. How you actually get better at art follows the same principle. So no, you're not going to get better at art overnight. It doesn't matter how many Bruce Timm drawings you trace. You're not going to get better overnight. It's going to take some time. The corner lady asks, how does this relate to tackling outside pressures like the ones you talked about earlier, like getting a house and starting a family? So pressures and expectations will always exist. They will always be there. Unfortunately, sometimes in way more toxic levels than they really should be. But the only expectations you should honestly meet are you and your loved ones who are not toxic. If they are toxic, they're giving you undue expectations, you should probably rethink a couple of things. But how this applies is how you handle that pressure, how once again, your thought process, your reactions to things, how you handle these external pressures and deal with these expectations will is the habit itself. So by adjusting into healthier thought processes or healthier mentalities, you will handle those pressures a lot better, and they no longer cause the same level of stress that they did before, if that makes sense. And we'll definitely talk a little bit more on this matter in a little bit, for sure. Like, it's gonna come up a couple of times. Gotcha, girl. Let's see here. All right, the next mechanics I want you guys to know about is the comfort zone is the danger zone. I love you. You cannot get anywhere if you do not leave where you are. If you want to move forward, if you want to grow beyond what you are now, that involves changing and growing beyond what you currently are. That means that you need to leave your comfort zone. Okay. So we have, just like how our habits build, how these neural pathways construct themselves, we have instincts. Instincts that were built since before the monolith landed in front of the apes and the apes started talking and walking. No, that's some survival mechanisms that we see a lot are food being bitter. If a fruit is extremely bitter, an animal is not likely not to eat it. The reason why is our brain associates bitter with something that is poisonous. So if it tastes something poisonous and we don't necessarily pick up on it consciously, the brain will translate that taste to being bitter. This is why, for those of you who go to a gym regularly and work out extensively, this is why when you get done with the gym, you don't crave dessert. You don't want anything to do with ice cream. You want salt, because your brain is telling you that you need more salt. You need more sodium. You need your sodium and your potassium levels replenished. So you will grab a bag of potato chips over a cone of ice cream. Another mechanism of the brain is fear of predators or venomous creatures. There's arachnophobia, there's fear of snakes, there's fear of heights, there's fear of deep water. Things that could probably kill you. You have this aversion to naturally because of survival. Your brain will do what it needs to survive. Now, if you actually understand these things, like I'm not necessarily afraid of spiders, but I understand a lot more about the insect and arachnid world than the average folk. So therefore, I'm not quick to fear them because I understand them a little bit more. But either way, fears are present for a reason. It is our brain protecting its meat suit from jumping off a cliff. That is also why a lot of most humans sleep at night, because we can't see at night very well. So why not recover and restore our energy when we can't really travel, and then travel during the daytime when we can see predators approaching us. Well, anyway, guess what? Comfort is one of these things. It is an instinctual illusion. Yes, even your favorite squishy beanbag chair is an illusion that it is comfortable. All our brain is doing is saying, my squishy is not a risk. Therefore, I'm not going to worry about it. And it doesn't worry about it anymore by ignoring it. So that's where you don't feel essentially anything when you do sit in your favorite squishy chair. However, if there was a book where you were sitting down, you're going to know right away, and you're going to jump right up and you're going to be like, oh crap, I didn't even see that, because your brain immediately saw a risk. The squishy chair is not a risk. The squishy chair is comfortable. But that book, I don't know where that came from. You need to get away from that, and that's where you'll jump up and be like, oh, what the heck is that? That is a potential risk. So this is where when you go to leave your comfort zone, when you try something new, when you try to learn something new, you are uncomfortable. That's natural. That is a natural response to be uncomfortable trying something new, to feel like it's risky, because to your brain it is. It is this new and risky thing. So it's good to become comfortable with a little bit of discomfort when you're trying to grow your art skills. Don't be afraid to try new styles and life study. Oh my God, and try new references. When you try to, how many times oh my gosh, I can't even count you how many times I've heard it. But how many times have you heard someone say, yeah, I put the hands in the pocket because I don't know how to draw hands. I've tried, but I just can't seem to draw hands. With a little practice, guess what? A little practice and being uncomfortable, yeah, your hands are going to suck at first. Working through that, you're going to get better at hands, and it becomes a habit, and it becomes your new comfort zone, because now you understand hands. You understand that they're no longer a risk. You didn't know about them before, so of course they were risky before, but now they're no longer a risk, so they become your new comfort zone. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to tackle feet. And you go for the next thing. The next major default that gets a lot of us is the path of the least resistance. Why are we going to spend extra time and extra energy and extra extra energy to climb up this mountain when there's this path around the mountain, and that one doesn't even have trees. That one's paved and it just goes right around the mountain. But there's this one that goes to the top, and we got to climb through the trees. Why are we going to do that? Why not just, it'll be like 5 years, but the path up to the top is like 1 year. Like, why? I'll just take the paved route. Guess what? You're not going to make it to the top of the mountain that you wanted to go. This is where procrastination originates. Not entirely, but this is one of the key factors of procrastination, of lethargy, of losing motivation, is why do you need to leave your comfy chair to go sit at your desk and stay up for 3 hours stressing when you can just stay in your comfy chair? Procrastination, my old friend, aesthetic. Yes. It already took you a lot to say, I want to learn how to draw better. Or I want to go learn how to fix a car. I want to go learn how to build a house. Whatever it is that you're going after, that is this larger thing that is going to take years of education and years of practice, is not an easy thing to say, and it's not an easy endeavor. It is going to take time. It is going to take effort. And it's so easy to say, you know what, it sounded good, but I think I'm just going to keep sitting in my comfy chair. Is that going to get you to your dreams? No, it's not. So once again, become comfortable with a little bit of discomfort. Leave your comfort zone and be willing to take the path of more effort for yourself, so that way you can get up to the top of the mountain and you can get to where you want to go with your skills. All right. Motivation versus inspiration versus drive. I can't work today. The stars aren't aligned. No, they're freaking not. Motivation is not the go button. It is not the go button. It certainly helps. So I just want to clarify these 3 different terms. And once again, by understanding a thing, it no longer becomes uncomfortable. See what we're doing there? All right, so motivation, the feeling motivation, not motivation, the mindsets. The feeling motivated is the byproduct of achievement. So when you're at the gym and you go to the gym very regularly and you're looking to just gain those muscles because you want to impress your crush, and you want them to look at you when you're walking by, but you look in the mirror and you start seeing improvements and you start seeing those gains. You're going to come back to the gym the next day and you're going to be quite a bit more enthusiastic to be at the gym than you were the day previously, because you're starting to see the reward trickle in. You're not seeing everything yet. You're not quite where you want to be, but you're starting to get that achievement resonance. That is motivation. Inspiration is nitrous. Inspiration is espresso. We know it very well when we look on Pinterest and we go down a Pinterest rabbit hole and we're like, you know what? I didn't want to make candles. Now I want to make candles. Now we're going to go out and get wax so we can make freaking candles. That is inspiration. Totally off the chain. It could be caused by anything. It can even be caused by a conversation with your bestie. And you're like, you know what? That is a fantastic idea. And suddenly you're inspired. Once again, it's a fantastic go button, but it's not always going to be around. What is always going to be around is the reason why you're doing what you're doing. That's your drive. What drives you down this path of artistic enlightenment? What drives you down this path of education? That it could be, not only do I want financial stability, I want to work a job that I enjoy doing, something that matters to me. That was actually me. Before I enrolled in art school, I did hotels and restaurants for a good decade. And I wanted something to leave my kid besides taxes. I wanted to leave something more substantial, more fun, more entertaining than just taxes or paperwork or anything. It's like all I'm going to leave behind is just paperwork. And me being an avid reader and just nerd from childhood, I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to draw. I'm going to write my own stories. And that is my drive. Also, my drive is to create stories. I love creating stories. Oh, hold on. Ads kicked in. Well, I don't see if it's over yet. Anyway. But yes, clarify with yourself what is your driving motivation. See, mindset. What is your driving motivation? What is the reason for you to put in this time and effort into learning how to do this thing? Because on the rainy days, when motivation left itself at the car park and inspiration hasn't come back from its binge last week, how are you going to get to work? How are you going to start working? And your drive should always be there. Always remind yourself of your drive. And a couple of different things that we can do for this is, that one dream that I asked you to write down, have that be your motivational quote. Have that sticking up on your office wall. Have that to remind you on the rainy days when you don't necessarily feel 100%, but you still need to get to work anyway. Because then what's going to happen is you start working, you're like, you know what? I don't feel the best, but I'm going to get to work anyway. You get a project done and you look back and you're like, I'm glad I started going to work. This actually came out pretty good. And guess what? Motivation showed back up. Now, that actually segues us into talking about excuses. This was something that was actually brought up in the survey too. I was going to bring it up anyway because excuses come up all the time in any industry, in all walks of life. Excuses happen. They happen for several different reasons, but they do indeed happen. There is, however, a difference. Some excuses are genuine. And if the excuse is genuine, that is an excusable reason. That is no longer an excuse. Sometimes people make excuses for a few different things. They don't want their boss to think any less of them. Oh, sorry, my neighbor's cat got stuck in a tree and I had to run up and get it, and that's why I'm late 15-20 minutes. Yeah, that could actually be a true story. But if it wasn't a true story, that person is making an excuse because maybe they hit snooze too many times and they don't want their boss to think any less of them or to think them of any less capable. In the art education world, we hear this as, oh, I'm sorry, that's my style. So tell me again why you're not practicing human figure drawing. Tell me again why you're not practicing. Oh, it's just my style not to draw hands. And though we also hear it as the internet went down. You live in the middle of a downtown city. There's a Starbucks in your same building. You could have turned in your homework by going downstairs and hitting the Starbucks. But once again, there are genuine excuses as well. And the biggest difference is, was there genuine effort and intention behind the excuses? We really only see action. Unfortunately, that's all anyone else sees is the actions of other human beings. We don't know their intention. But saying, hey, my book bag got stolen on the bus, all of my homework was inside of it. That was a true story too. This individual lost 2,000 drawings on the bus. And now that is an excusable reason. That is very excusable. That is a genuine situation. But rather than asking for forgiveness or exemption, saying, hey, can you still give me credit for it? He went and he redid all 2,000 drawings. That's above and beyond, because the instructor probably would have been willing to, be like, you know what, yeah, let's count it anyway, or do half of what was asked. Instead, the student redid their work, and that happens quite a bit, where this is where it's good to not wait till last minute and give yourself time. I personally worked on a charcoal portrait. I did it was due on Sunday, and I was finished with it on Wednesday. However, when I was finishing it up, I sneezed. Charcoal went everywhere. I had to totally redo the entire thing, but because I didn't wait till last minute, I actually had time to redo everything. So the difference between excuses and excusable reasons is really you. Why is it that you feel the need to ask for extensions? Why is it that you feel the need to, every time you walk into the room 30 minutes late, when you get off of work 2 hours prior and you have plenty of time to get over to the class, and you still rush in 30-40 minutes late, like, oh, sorry. The difference is you. Are you genuinely making an effort, or are you masking fear and anxiety and fear of underperforming, fear of letting down your instructor or your peers, fear of looking bad in front of everyone? Are you genuinely trying, or are you masking something else? And if you're masking something else, you need to ask yourself what. Because becoming aware of why you're making excuses, why you feel the need to consistently make excuses, is going to help you overcome that, and to no longer make excuses and turn those excuses into actions. All right. All right, I went on a little bit of a rant on you. All right. We got some of the core mechanics aside. We're going to start digging into this. We're going to talk about identity here in a minute. But let's take a wellness break. Let's take a little 5-minute wellness break. Get you a snack, get you some water, catch up on your notes. Definitely talk in the chat pod, contribute in the chat pod. 5-minute wellness break. We'll be right back. All right, my gentle people. I hope you all made it back. If not, that's okay. That's okay. I do want to check in and see how everyone's doing. Definitely let me know what you guys are getting, how you guys are faring in this workshop. If stuff is clicking, what's resonating with you. Let me hear all of that. And other than the ads, oh my god, okay, so I don't know how to turn that up. I'm gonna see if I can. I'll try and time it a little bit better for you. Yes. Right. Anyway, all right. So now that we have some of the mechanics out of the way, we have our toolkits. Let's start talking a little bit closer to home. So, a professional identity is something that isn't discussed a whole lot. Luckily, like nowadays, like over these past few years, the concept of one's identity is becoming more commonplace and more widely accepted. And this is a super exciting time. Not gonna lie, like remember being in school and being bullied for being a girl who was a nerd and who liked other girls and stuff like that. And so to have such a progressive period of time in our culture is excellent. But we are going to be talking about identities in the professional sense. But the corner lady has asked a question. Can anxiety be something that can fall under the excusable category sometimes, or is it always an excuse? Anxiety can be excusable. In my opinion, anxiety can definitely be excusable. The key is to learn from your anxiety attacks, to get to the heart of what is causing anxiety. And we're actually going to talk about anxiety specifically a little bit later on, but becoming aware of what is causing your anxiety is something that, once again, you can go in and address more specifically and be like, maybe I am being too hard on myself. How can I be more compassionate towards myself? And going through that process will, in turn, alleviate the anxiety attacks and alleviate, it's not just treating the symptoms, it's treating the cause of these anxiety attacks. But once again, there are some anxiety attacks that do happen for no reason. There are some individuals where it is a continuous struggle. Finding a way to still be productive around your challenges is very possible. It is going to take some time, and it is going to take a lot of support and a lot of extra effort on your part, but by all means, it is extremely possible. It does not have to continue to weigh on you. So I hope that answers the question a little bit, but like I said, we're going to be digging into it a little bit more later on. Actually, kind of quite a bit through these next few slides. We're going to be talking about some of the things that cause anxiety too. But so for professional identity, a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, oh yeah, this is my brand, this is my portfolio, this is my website, and they stop there. An artist's peak is their last piece of art. Granted, however, art is not the only thing that makes up an artist. How they talk to their clients, how they work with their peers and their coworkers, how they discuss things with their boss. All of these things are our professional identity. We know we have a good professional identity when we walk into an interview and they say, oh, so-and-so had so much good, so many good things to say about you. He said, you show up on time, you show up to work, that type thing. That is how you have a good professional identity and reputation going. But even when you haven't built your reputation yet, it's important to understand and evaluate your own professional identity, because this is going to be a grounding concept for you to uphold essentially your professional identity. What you want to be when you step into a room with other artists, with your coworkers, with your peers, with the design team. When you step into that room, what do you want to be when you step into that room? How do you want them to see you? Do you want them to respect you? Do you want them to listen to what you have to say? Do you want them to be comforted because you're there? They know the project's going to go smoother. They know the work's going to get done. These are the kinds of questions that you should ask yourself and then uphold in your behavior when you're in a professional situation. Like, I want people to depend on me. What that means is show up on time to meetings, respond to messages, don't withhold information. If you have something that can help the project, you absolutely share that with the rest of the team. You're communicating with clients, you're answering their questions and understanding their needs. To say that, oh, I want to be a heavy hitter on a project. absolutely, you better be doing art every single day, because the heavy lifters on projects are absolutely the hardest working people I've ever seen. Like, they are doing art probably 14 hours of the day and then the rest sleeping. But that is if that is a professional identity that you value, if those are things that you value for yourself and for your reputation, by all means incorporate that into your professional identity. And where this comes into play, even if you're young in the industry, even if you're still in art school or you just graduated, you don't have a job yet, still ground yourself in your professional identity, because when you keep getting no's at it for interviews, which we're also going to talk about, you are going to be comforted by that. Let that ground you and comfort you. Have that in your pocket, have that kind of as your body armor, that even if, you're in your 80th interview for the month, you know what kind of a worker you are. You know what kind of an artist you are and where you want to be. And you're faced with some setbacks right now, but guess what? You're still going for it. All right. I hope that kind of makes sense. Let's... Battling art block. We got some bad news. It's a myth. It's also good news that it's a myth. Art block is in pop culture, is this monster. It's this mythological creature that comes out and makes you want to put on a tutu and dance the floss or whatever. But it is a very real, it is also a very real structure, just not in the sense that a lot of pop culture presumes it to be. Art block is a very generalized term for a mental struggle, a mental blockage. It is also aesthetic derelict. You hit that right on the nose. It is also what makes you wait for motivation. Like, I'm in art block right now. Motivation hasn't showed up for like 2 weeks now, and I can't get work done without him, so we're stuck here. Art block is a mental block, and just like with anxiety, kind of how we talked about that, you have to analyze yourself and ask yourself questions and get to the bottom of why is it happening. So you're about to work on a piece that involves drawing hands, and you're terrified because you don't draw hands very well right now. That fear of underperforming is stopping you from researching, finding good hand reference, and taking it one step at a time to do the drawing despite your nervousness around there being hands included. Because, like it or not, now, art in itself, there is so many wonderful things that come out of art, but art at its core is actually technical. It is a form of visual communication, and it has its rules, it has its structures. So if the reason why you're experiencing art block is, I don't know what to draw, pull up Pinterest, pick a random pin. There is enough resources out there, as well as references that you can pick up and start life studying. Like, I cannot stress that enough. If you don't know what to draw, go to the internet, randomly pick a pin that just like, oh, this is beautiful, this is a beautiful house, and draw the house. Even if you're not so good at drawing a house, still draw it, still mark the paper. And actually, fun little trick that I had to do in my first couple of years personally, learning how to life study, actually, specifically. Like, I don't understand why I'm doing this. That's not so cool. And I kind of faced the same situation where it's like I just became afraid to hit the go button. I wanted to make, a concise decision, but I didn't know enough to make a good decision. If that makes any sense. Anyway, what I ended up doing was telling my inner thought to go screw itself. But then I just marked the paper. Like, I literally just drew a line, this perfect, pristine white paper that was intimidating the heck out of me. I just marked it, smudged it around. I'm like, now it's not perfect. Now I need to make it look good. Let's get started. So sometimes you do just need to mark the paper. You do just need to make that first stroke. Once again, even if you don't necessarily feel like it. All right. Oh, Stimpy25, welcome. Art is totally a science, sometimes especially when it comes to realistic figures, life studies, and perspective. Yes! And amen. We are also going to be digging into that a little bit deeper, but yes, art is very much more technical. The emotion and the experience that people put into pieces, or the amount of expression they communicate through their style, is something that maybe they don't have all the time. That is something where it's like, oh, I can't create my next masterpiece because the stars aren't aligned. Guess what? You can still life study when that's not happening. And by continuing to do art, even if it is not your favorite art to do, you keep your muscles oiled, and that spark that you need to do your specific style may come back to you while you're life studying. It may smack you in the face even, being like, oh my god, I should totally do this in my style. Whatever the case. Aesthetic derelict. That's why I like to ask everyone what their default subject is. If they have no ideas but have an answer to that, I just tell them to draw that. I like it. So for me, actually, my default is animals. I absolutely love animals and biology and the zoological world. I have a huge career crush on Terrell Whitlatch. That I will sit there and I will pull out it. I will just pull up random animal references. You guys can see it on my TikTok or my Instagram, and I'll just draw an animal. Whatever one looked cute or looked awesome. In my Pinterest feed, I'll just pull up Pinterest and I'll be like, first animal, that looks sick. Let's draw it. And there, my art block is gone. So I absolutely love that idea. Always have, actually that brings up, one of my students had a quick list with 20 points on it. So if anyone knows what a D20 is. And that list, if ever they weren't sure what to draw, they would roll the D20 and be like, 14 cabins in the woods. Let's go. You can definitely do something like that if, once again, figuring out what to draw is a challenge for you. But if it's a fear, if it is an anxiety that is blocking you from putting the pencil down onto paper, analyze it. Get to the core of it. Discuss it with your support group or discuss it with a mentor. And then that thing will no longer be stopping you. All right, moving along. We have all been here, or we are all still here, in the realm of self-depreciation. Self-depreciation, self-doubt, self-sabotage, self-fulfilling prophecies. Self is not what self wants to be. Now, self-depreciation is a term that isn't widely used, but where you say appreciation, I appreciate you, depreciation is the opposite, where you're being negative. So self-depreciation is you being negative towards yourself, you essentially valuing yourself less than what you're actually worth. this comes very often for young artists. The fear that you're never going to get good, the fear that you're never going to get hired at the place you want to work. It is a natural fear to have. It is definitely a feeling that it's almost good to have, because that shows you how much you want this. But at the same time, acting out with this fear may cause more damage than it does good. So, getting approached, this client comes up to you and says, oh, can you do this commission for me? I have this illustration for this book that I want to do, or whatever, and I would like you to do it. And you turn that down because you don't feel like you're capable of it. Now, there's a difference between being objective and subjective. Once again, this client has seen your portfolio. They've seen your website. They've seen your work. They know you're capable of doing what they want you to do. That's why they approached you. That's why they asked you. There's the objectivity in that situation. The subjectivity is that you feel like you aren't able to do it, like you're not capable, like you're going to underperform. And even if you do accept it, you're not going to meet their expectations. So you don't accept it. You don't give yourself this opportunity. You don't say yes out of fear. That's self-sabotage, is acting out of these fears and being afraid to take that next step, to take that leap. And you know what? Even if you say yes, and even if it doesn't go well, you still were approached for this project. You are getting better. And you said yes. You're working through your fears and still tackling these challenges. And if it didn't work out, you can analyze, why didn't it work out? Was it a communication flaw? Was it client expectations? Was it, maybe I did actually suck, or whatever the case is. And then you can say, you know what? This is what I think happened. And you can always ask your peers and mentors for a second opinion. Hint, hint. And, they'll tell you what they see in the situation. But you didn't let your fear stop you. So you can learn from that experience, and you can apply that moving forward. But you can't turn down opportunities, and you can't say no to yourself for things, for learning new things, for accepting opportunities, for taking your instructor's feedback. Stop saying no to yourself, because that is the most damage you could possibly do to yourself. Now, for self-doubt comes for a number of reasons. Talking about anxiety, you may doubt yourself because you know yourself to have anxiety and panic attacks. You know yourself to freak out in specific stressful situations or under the distress of deadlines. You know these things about yourself. So you doubt that moving forward, you can grow from them, so you don't give yourself the benefit of the doubt by trying to overcome these challenges. Oh shoot, it was on the tip of my tongue. It was just there. So you, with anxiety and let's roll with that the deadline coming up stresses you out, and that causes anxiety attacks. And next thing you know, 8 hours went by and you just lost 8 hours to work on the project. And now the timeline is even closer. Knowing that the deadline stresses you out, you can start setting yourself up to where when you first get the project, when you first get assigned the homework and you know what you need to do, start working right then. Deadlines a week from now, deadlines a month from now. Don't worry about it. Do it now, and then you don't worry about it. As opposed to, I'll do it, it's due on Sunday, I'll do it on Friday. What if something happens on Friday? Then you have to do it on Saturday. What if you panic on Saturday? Then you're stuck rushing through it on Sunday. Knowing how you sabotage yourself and understanding why you sabotage yourself helps you overcome these types of situations. So once again, it is healthy and natural to be doubtful, to have self-doubt, but be mindful of the decisions and the actions you take, that they don't turn around and hurt you more than they help you. And then also for self-depreciation, guys, be compassionate for yourself. There is such a thing as toxic selflessness, okay? Seriously, stop being so hard on yourself and find things that you start liking about yourself. Like, you know what? I like that animals are my default. This is fine. Just because I'm going into environments, I can throw animals in there, and you start finding things to value in yourself. And stop saying you suck when you're learning. Once again, you're supposed to suck. The key is to keep learning and to keep moving forward. So that way you don't suck anymore. All right. Speaking of anxiety and fear, most of the time anxiety comes from fear. That is not a lie. All right. I don't want to say all of it, but sometimes anxiety does come from post-traumatic stress. Okay. But even then, it's still from fear because you're afraid the past will repeat itself. Either way, most of the time, it's from fear. Sometimes it creeps up on us, as we go throughout the week. Homework's due on Sunday. It's already Wednesday. We're starting to feel that panic set in. And actually, the corny lady, while I am discussing this topic, why don't you write and tell me a little bit more about what's causing, if you're comfortable with it, a little bit more about your anxiety triggers. So we're new to the industry. We're new to learning how to draw. We're new to the classroom. We're new to being in a professional interview. Whatever the case is, we're in this new and scary place. We don't understand it yet. We are naturally afraid of it. But we have peers and we have guidance that says it's okay. You are learning. You are growing. The interview will go well. You may or may not get the job. Whatever the case is, there is never going to be a shortage of potentially stressful situations or things to essentially be afraid of. Being aware of the things that cause your anxiety, being mindful of what you are afraid of. Once again, if it's deadlines, if you're afraid of deadlines and deadlines really stress you out, by working ahead as you can work, you alleviate the need to stress deadlines. Let's see here. Aesthetic Derelict says, I also deal with a fair bit of anxiety, part of it caused by past failings of failure and a desire to never feel that again. It's like past memories of old stories keep playing on loop in my head and I freeze up. Same, bro. So a little bit about me. I had a 10-year extremely abusive, mentally, emotionally, physically, extremely abusive relationship. It was not pretty, and I walked out of that relationship, thankfully, safely, literally feeling and believing that I was worthless and I wouldn't amount to anything and I wasn't capable of doing anything beyond serving tables. First, something sparks. Something says, you know what? I'm gonna still go for this. going to still try for it. And that spark is your drive. That is the reason why you're doing the things that you're doing. But it is a habit to say, oh, the deadline's coming up. What am I going to freaking do? Sometimes you can do the work. Even if that voice is playing in your head. Once again, your actions are going to speak louder than your thoughts. Your thoughts will still contribute. And in terms of PTSD and intrusive thoughts and that inner voice being extremely loud sometimes, aesthetic derelict, if I know anything about you, I know you love characters. That voice that talks in the back of your head and says, you remember when you failed that one time? That's going to happen again. Make him into a character. And just personify him as a character, as a villain if you want. And then personify your inner voice when you are speaking in your head. Not when your intrusive thought is speaking, not when your little thought demon is speaking. When you are speaking to yourself. You're going to be talking to yourself in your head. However, sometimes you need expert advice. But this is one of the... for me, this was crucial. And I've talked with quite a few other people who say the same thing. It seems weird at first, but have conversations in your head if you have to. Literally in your head. Tell the dude to shut up if you have to. But being like, you know what? You're gonna fail again. And you being like, well, you know what? I'm going for it anyway. You know why? Because even if I fail, I'll still learn something from it and I'll still be better for it. So suck it. We're doing this. It will keep coming up, but the more you essentially fight back and appreciate yourself versus depreciation, the easier it gets to shut that down. And that no longer governs you. When you go to start a project, you're no longer so afraid of failing. Because that path got reclaimed by nature after so long of just being like, you know what, we're doing it anyway. We're still going to learn from it. It's still considered mileage. You're still racking up mileage. You don't truly fail. I do like that saying. The only true failure is to quit. That's the only way you truly fail. If you keep walking forward, even if you stumble, even if you fall down, you're still walking forward. You get back up, dust off your knees, keep walking again. You are still moving forward, and that's the part that counts. So yeah, your little inner voice that is reminding you of that past failure can go suck it. All right, so the corner lady. So yeah, deadlines are a bigger trigger. I'm glad we're covering that in a little bit more depth. Freezing is a cycle. It is very easily a cycle. So you both are mentioning freezing up, and that is, of course, one of the biggest things that happen with us. We get so worked up and so wound up that we're not doing any work. And then we get even more wound up because we're not doing work, and we should be doing work, and we're wasting time being wound up. Here's the thing. It's not a waste of time to address the way you're feeling. It's not a waste of time to call your support system and be like, hey, I'm really struggling right now. Can I talk this out with you? Because when you address how you're feeling, when you address why you're feeling the way you are, once again, you're taking care of the source of the issue as opposed to just pushing past it or letting it happen time and time again. That is how you're going to learn and grow, is really get to the heart of, like a standard derelict. He has past traumas that make him afraid of failure in the future. And him addressing it would be understanding fully where he is afraid he might fail, and then appreciating the opportunities and the time he gets to put in. Even if it doesn't work out, he still gained mileage and finding things to value in still trying, despite being afraid of failure. And yes, task prioritization. That is also always a constant, and we'll cover task management here in a little bit too. But yes, being able to prioritize or having tasks competing for priority does also come down to you learning how to effectively balance and handle these stress factors. Like I said, there is always going to be stress factors, but your ability to handle them, just like going to the gym and lifting weights, it'll get easier. All right. Also, if you absolutely have to, you need to look at some situation objectively. Another thing that tends to cause anxiety or fear is going in for job interviews or getting turned down for jobs. A lot of people do self-depreciate and say, they said I sucked, and it's like, well, did they actually say I sucked? Well, they said I just didn't get the job. And it's like, okay, so why did you say they sucked? Because I thought I sucked. That's self-depreciation. If you applied at Blizzard on the Diablo 4 team, guess what? They received tens of thousands of applications of people wanting to work on the Diablo team. They can't hire everyone that applies for the job. They only need 5 people out of 10,000 people. So realistically, it's not impossible, but realistically, you may not get the job. That doesn't mean you weren't capable of the job. That doesn't mean that they didn't want you. It just means that of the ones they selected, you were not on the list. So stepping out of your subjectivity to where they said no and I suck and I'm never going to get a job, and saying, you know what, maybe the opportunity just wasn't there for me specifically. I'm going to go and apply over here now, or I'm going to try again later. We'll recover that in a little bit too. But either way, be mindful of where you are being subjective. And if you're not sure, ask a bestie, ask your support group, ask a mentor or a teacher, talk to them, and they will let you know what is the facts and what is you self-doubting, what is you self-depreciating. And let's see here. All right. As I go off on a tangent, focus. Let's talk about focus. Just like deadlines and stress factors in the workplace, distractions are also always there. We talk about minimizing distractions all the time on the internet, and whether it's getting your kids a snack and sitting them down for a movie so you can work for 2 uninterrupted hours, hopefully, maybe. Or it's turning your phone on silent or on a focus mode. There are several different ways that you can minimize distractions that interrupt your workflow. But then there's invisible ways that are causing distractions. And this one, I didn't start, I knew it was a thing, but I didn't really fully understand it was a thing until I had finally gotten a phone and got on social media, and I was like, holy crap, this is actually a thing. When you scroll through TikTok, when you scroll through Facebook, and you go post to post to post to post, you're giving yourself a little hit of dopamine. This is the new and fun, cute little thing. Here's a puppy running around the screen. Okay, next. Oh, look, it's a little turtle getting a back scratch. Oh, next. Oh, that dude's got a funny joke, and you keep going. And what you're doing is, 1, your brain's like, oh, great, keep it coming. But then 2, when you put the phone down and you're like, okay, I gotta work, your brain's like, where's my dose? Where's my hit? We've been staring at this reference for 2 minutes, for 20 seconds now. Next thing. And so when you're ready to sit down and work, you had better put the phone down. Probably like a half hour prior to you actually sitting down to work, and get your workspace ready in that time. And then actually when you sit down, your brain is no longer on social media mode. So there's different ways to mitigate essentially that shortened attention span. But then also when you silence unnecessary notifications on your phone, like, oh, your friend posted her mountain trip on Instagram. That's something that you can wait till your break to see. You don't need to stop what you're doing to look at your phone and see, oh, it's an Instagram post. So by silencing your notifications, you help yourself out, because you're no longer constrained to people bothering you. I do love focus modes. Personally, I absolutely do love them, because you're able to set what is important. So, if my kid were to text message me, that makes it through. But, if my friend posts a picture of her trip to the mountains this weekend, that can wait. And I don't get that sound. So definitely utilize that both on your phone and on your computer. We're going to be talking about ADHD next, but setting up your space for work ahead of time makes it easier to focus. This is a little trick that has helped out so many of us young artists. How many times have we said, oh, I want to start drawing. Oh, that means I got to unbury my sketchbook. That means I got to clean off the table. That means I got to find my pencils. I think they fell on the couch somewhere. Oh my God, did I even charge my pencil for my iPad? See where we're getting at? So sometimes the best thing you can do for your focus is to set up ahead of time. Even if you don't start working right away, like if it's the day before. So like when I go to start a large painting, I'll prepare the day before. And it will be there. And then my brain now knows tomorrow we're going to paint. And I set myself up to work ahead of time, and my brain prepares itself. Like, oh yeah, we're going to do this. Okay, well, before we do this, I need to check emails. So we'll check emails the night before. I just have to warm up first, aesthetic derelict. Yes. However, that is something that you don't do ahead of time. That is something you do before you start working. The hard part is people not warming up, is to start working without warming up. I'll get to that later too. But then also mental fidgets to help us focus. One of the examples that I hear a lot and I personally partake in is audiobooks. If we are working on a painting for like 3 days, our brain might get a little bit bored, and sometimes the best thing we can do is distract it. And so having an audiobook or having a podcast going that we can listen to and not need to look at, don't have any visuals, like don't have a movie running on the background. Too easy to get sucked into movies and you're no longer looking at your painting. But you give your brain something to focus on while you're working on the painting. For writing, that doesn't work so well because listening and trying to put different words out, that's two different areas of the brain, much more difficult. So putting on ambient wordless music sometimes helps with writing. Like, oh, I'm writing a scene in a tavern and throwing on some D&D tavern music. Either way, you find the things that help improve your focus and hold those tight. Use the heck out of those. And don't be shy about them. Don't be like, well, I do this weird thing where I listen to audiobooks while I paint. Don't even freaking trust me. You're not alone. I promise. And sometimes you need physical fidgets too. Like I have a lovely keyboard thing that you probably hear me grinding as I'm talking. Or you'll see me knitting. I also knit while I'm in meetings. Sometimes you just need that little extra just to shh and focus. Which brings me to the next slide. Oh, there's a shiny! Kneaded erasers are amazing stress balls. Yes. Yep, that I cannot. There has been many kneaded erasers I have personally just worn through to the bone, or have seen, like when one of my besties, when he gets on a live stream and draws, and there's been one occasion where like his camera like kind of fell a little bit, like he bumped it and it fell, and you just see a kneaded eraser with like nail marks in it. So ADHD, whoo, shiny. Neurospicy, neurodivergence, also known as ADHD, which, if we hear ADHD a lot, but the actual verbiage is attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. Autism spectrum and dyslexia, stuff like this, are the invisible challenge for people, because people, once again, we see actions. We don't see intentions. We don't see no one knows what's going on inside your head but you. Unless you communicate it, then we're like, oh, that explains it. So I do want to elaborate on attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. It's either slow mode or goblin mode. There's no in between. The trick with ADHD is, once again, you can rewire your brain to work more effectively for you. It is your process and the things that you work on will look different from a neurotypical, even though I don't believe those really exist. I think we're all quirky in our own ways. But the trick with ADHD is to get your goblin mode to work for you, and to get your slow mode during breaks. So this is something that is different for everybody. But once again, you can train yourself through habit formation to better utilize your goblin mode, and to know how to best get your goblin mode going. So for me, I kind of mentioned setting up a painting, setting up the canvas, and getting out the paints and the easel, and just getting everything ready the day before. And it's have my references out and printed and be looking at them the entire time, have my thumbnails over there. Like, this painting is ready to go. And I'm going to leave it sit there for the night. Guess what that does for me? For me, that causes me to get excited and to be like, I need to go work on it. Like, right now, it is over there. It is ready. I am pumped. Let's go. All night long. So when I wake up in the morning, sometimes I'll start before I even make my coffee, to be honest. Like, there is zero chill at that point, because my inner goblin is so worked up, it's gotta go now. And so analyze what triggers your goblin mode, what sets off your slow mode, or what triggers your slow mode. And then also for me, I am on the spectrum, so definitely talking from experience, but for me, I did not find out until I was like in my last semester of my degree. I did not figure this out, and it's like I just went most of my adult life, and I've had these struggles. Like, there were so many things that were on the test that it was like, this is not a problem for everyone else. I don't understand. So be mindful and start watching yourself. Start taking note of what triggers you, what helps you, what hinders you. If you're sitting at your desk and there's a bunch of clutter around, and you suddenly start getting really stressed out and you don't want to be at your desk anymore, try clearing off the clutter. If clearing off the clutter, you sit at your desk for longer periods of time, that may be one of the tricks that you need to start incorporating. Also, so this was a huge concern for a few people who contributed via the survey last year. Once again, a huge shout out to everyone who contributed to the survey. That it was such a huge help to hear these insights. One of the biggest fears, which this was like when I was in my last semester, And I'm like, I'm about to graduate. How is this going to affect my professional career? A lot of people that struggle with this have this fear that it will hinder them in the workplace. And the reality is no, it doesn't need to. So times are changing, you know, just like with personal identities. There's more and more awareness around mental challenges and neurodivergence. And it's important for you to communicate with your boss that, hey, I struggle around deadlines, so please let me know what I need to do as soon as you do. You know, or I would really appreciate as much heads up and as much, you know, time as you can give me, so that way I can work ahead and not work last minute. Or during meetings, it is difficult for me to be on camera. It's hard for me to focus. If it's all right, could I please be off camera? Or, hey, I hope you don't mind if I'm knitting or playing with something in the meeting. Stuff, or even needing extra elaboration on what a project needs, what you need to do for a project. Communicate with your boss, communicate with your peers. Another big one is needing noise canceling headphones, because if we're actually like working in a place and we're, you know, trying to focus, it's very easy, especially for neurodivergent individuals, to get very overstimulated. And being able to reduce the amount of incoming information and incoming stimulation via noise canceling headphones is very helpful for a lot. And so being able to tell your boss, hey, listen, if it's not too much to ask, I'd really love to, or I really need to wear headphones while I work. This doesn't mean that like I'm not, you know, listening out for you yelling across the office, but just be mindful that I need this, you know, to work. And if anything, you know, just shoot me a message on my computer. I'll come over and talk to you in the office. Whatever your challenges are, you can find a way to work with them, and you can also overcome being able to handle them. That they no longer are such burdens. And being able to work with your challenges and handle them in a way that you're still getting the job done even through these challenges, that's what's gonna make you shine. But also, just for a little bit of zest, your brain operates differently. That's not a bad thing. So many big creatives and so many historical figures, they're going back and they're realizing we're neurodivergent. Your brain operates differently. You're going to see things that the rest of the team may not. You're also going to come up with ideas that the rest of the team may not. You're going to have an art style that may bring something to the table. And whether you're neurodivergent or not, you are going to have your own unique life experiences to bring to the table. Your own unique insights, your own unique ideas. So despite whatever your challenges are, you can work with them, overcome them, mitigate them. Like you can drastically reduce how much stress they cause you. Then you can go sit at a design table and be an absolute rock star. Just saying. All right, and no, I do speak from experience now, finally. After 2 years in the art world, communication is key. All right. Workspaces. This was another topic to come up. This was another requested topic. And also something that I have seen a lot of. And students who were underperforming, it was not surprising to see them doing work from bed. Sometimes we live in a small studio apartment, colleges are expensive, that type thing where, you know, we really have minimal space. even in that situation, you still need to differentiate your space from work to play to sleep. It is one of the absolute worst things that you can do to yourself is work right next to your bed. I say this having worked next to my bed for like the past 5 or 6 years. It is super, super difficult because you're not far from a nap. You're 2 steps from a nap, or you're 2 steps from a Netflix binge. Working from a bed, that feels inactive. Yes. It really, really can be. Yeah. So Aesthetic Derelict said I had to stop working in my room because it was actively triggering me. Yes. Trust me, when I say how welcome this move has been, oh my goodness. You have no idea, because it was a continuous struggle for me to work right next to my bed. Because what happens is your habits, your brain is going to fall on what you're doing. And what you're doing is laying in bed. Laying in bed means sleep. Or laying in bed means work, not sleep. So you start blurring those lines for your brain to where your brain no longer differentiates, hey, I need to work. And it's like, yeah, but we're in bed. So I feel like sleeping right now, so I'm going to sleep. When you differentiate your workspace, when you have it separated, when it is its own thing, you sit down at your workspace and your brain's like, let's work. Let's get to it. This is where it's sometimes hard for video gamers to go into game dev, because especially if they're a PC gamer, because they're doing a lot of homework digitally and on their computers, which they also use to video game. One of the tricks for that is to have separate setups. Not necessarily like separate computers, but okay, you have your controller, you have your streamer equipment out, whatever the case is. When you go to work, put that away. Put the controller away, put the streamer equipment out of sight, out of mind, and maybe even get like a whole different keyboard. Maybe put your monitors in a different position, or even have your, move your easel right next to your desk. Whatever you need to do to physically, visually separate your space, your workspace, is a worthy investment. It is very crucial. And where this also comes up is working in a living room with family. Sometimes you also get lots of distractions and roommates. Let's see here. Stimpy25, I found it is really helpful to actually put on real clothes, not pajamas or lounging around the house clothes, to go to work at your desk. Amen. Amen. I also do the same thing. That is one of my differentiations, is putting on pants in the morning, essentially. I agree wholeheartedly, personally. And on days off, guess what? It's pajama day. So, worthy contribution. Thank you, Stimpy25. But yes, so then the other thing too, is keep your workspace clean between projects. Now, traditional artists, we already have the benefit of, now mind you, I am both traditional and digital. I am very adept at both worlds. Traditional art, you get the benefit of having a space that needs to get messy. Digital art, it's on the computer, it's there, not necessarily as messy unless you count all the snacks and drinks. But either way, so mostly for traditional artists, let your workspace get messy while you're actively working on projects. Don't be anal about cleaning it. But between projects, tidy up your workplace. Like you see, I got a whole setup there. Before they were just organized in drawers, and when I have a project, I would pull everything I need out, the rulers, the guides, the paint, the scissors, whatever was needed, I'd pull it out and then put it back at the end of a project. That way, when you go to start the next project, you know where everything's at. And tidying it in between is one less thing stopping you from getting started on the next project. Like, oh, I still have to clean up after that last painting. That's going to take hours. Well, if you do it when you finish the project, you're no longer standing in your own way, are you? But all right, so take pride in your workspace. Separate it. If you are in a situation where you have to work from bed, like I said, I've worked with a couple of students where that was literally the only furniture they had room for. We set up a situation where they got like a little lap desk and set it up at the foot of their bed. They made their bed, they put the pillows like under the blankets off to the side, they tidied everything up, then they put the lap desk in the middle and they sat at the foot of their bed. Because that was enough differentiation in the workspace to trip their brain into now they have to work. And also, yeah, just take pride in your workspace. This is a space that you're going to spend a lot of time in. So it should be a space that you're comfortable in the sense that you can find where everything's at. You're not stressed out by piles of, ignore my piles of my books, my TBR pile, one a minute, but not piles of things to do where it's like, oh, I gotta sort all of those papers. I gotta reply to all these emails. You're not overwhelmed by the clutter in your workspace. You have the freedom to move and do as you see fit. All right. Now that we got that covered, so many of you were asking this question, how do you practice effectively? There's actually a science to it. Okay, so we were talking about building a habit. 7 days, it's the hardest. 7 weeks, it gets easier. You can build on it. 7 months, it's yours. In order to do that, in order to make the most out of that, or even reduce the amount of time it takes to build a habit, you should be practicing for at least 1 hour a day. And in that hour, to get the most of it, one, minimize distractions, but it's this simple formula. And this formula is very prominent in music, but it is also very, 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 very valued in art. So the first part of your practice should be 20 to 30 minutes of fundamentals or basics. This warms you up. This gets your muscles going. This gets your brain in gear. It takes about 20 minutes for your brain to get into the zone. It doesn't happen right away, guys. I don't know if you noticed that yet, but it takes time for your brain to get warmed up and to get into the zone. So 20 to 30 minutes of foundations will help, or basics. In music, it's also known as scales. This also helps build or maintain your foundations, strengthen your foundations. Where if you do warm up with human figure drawing, you're a character designer, and you do nude human figure drawing, when you go to throw clothes on them, you're not sweating the anatomy. That's how you warmed up. You warm up like that every day. It no longer is a conscious effort for you to draw the human figure. So fundamentals, 20 to 30 minutes of fundamentals or basics to warm you up. Then, part 2, 20 to 30 minutes of something that challenges you, of something that is out of your comfort zone, the thing that you are trying to learn to do, be it homework, whatever the case is. At least 20 to 30 minutes of that. Don't even count it as work. This should just be your hour of practice, and then you can get to work later. Something that challenges you. And then the last part, and the most important part, second to foundations, is 20 to 30 minutes of something that you enjoy. Something that you genuinely just, like if it's drawing animals, whatever the case is, something that you love drawing, something that you love doing. Because that is going to, 1, remind you why you're doing this. And 2, it's going to recharge your battery because odds are you're a little bit stressed out from doing the challenging thing. So it's a way to unwind. So I cannot stress this enough. Do not forget to play. Even if it's on a day off and you want to go draw an animal. If that's how you play with art, then go play with art. Like I said, learn like kids again. Let's see here. Aesthetic Derelict says, what if getting into that need to grind state makes it harder to remember to play? That is adulting to a T. That is focusing too hard on expectations. That is taking studying too seriously. However, I do personally understand, especially the stresses of being in art education, that it can be very overwhelming. So when we get to task management and stuff like that, you need to make it a point. If it is something you forget, if it is something that that you push to the side, make time for it. Write it down as a part of your to-do list, even if it's one day a week. I personally love, and yes, absolutely, do this every day that you can. This is how you improve. This is how you get better, is you start with this formula. But then also just take a day and work on your comic book, Aesthetic Derelict. Whatever it is that recharges your batteries, that makes you laugh like, oh my God, wait until everyone sees this. Whatever it is, work on that. Make time to work on that. At least this much a day. All right. Speaking of task and time management, I believe in you. All right, time management. If I were to ask you, where is your time going right now? How are you using your time? Do you know how to answer that question? In order to manage your time, you first need to know what you're doing with it. Aesthetic Derelict channeling Yoda. Yes, exactly. Yes, I do agree. Try in this. So do or do not. There is no try. Try in the sense of, I tried to do it, but I didn't get anything done. Maybe you made a mental or internal effort and you have this internal challenge going on, but ultimately, if there's no results, there's no results. So if you don't let yourself play, Bolu, you're gonna burn out. Just letting you know that. So make time to recharge your own batteries. All right, so time management. You first need to know where it's going and what is happening. If your memory fails you and you're like, I think I might have worked for 4 hours yesterday and then I had to go work at my pays the bills job for 8 hours or whatever the case is, then take a couple of weeks to write down where your time is going. There are numerous resources for time tracking out there. I personally used a Tracker Pro for years because it was so customizable. There were so many trackers out there that were like, exercise. Going for a walk break. And I'm like, do walk breaks? What? That's silly. But I was able to say, okay, my morning class, heads and hands, traditional drawing, digital drawing, and to see where or Netflix and chill, whatever the case was. And you hit start on the time, and then when you're done doing the thing, you hit stop. Takes a little bit to remember to hit start and stop, or at the end of the day being like, okay, I know it was like from lunch to dinner that I worked on this painting. So that's like, about 5 hours. Either way, you need to essentially give yourself a time report on what you've been doing with your time. Because then you'll sit there and see, I Netflix for 20 hours a week. Guess what else you could be doing with that time? If you got a pays the bill job, there's going to be a good chunk of your time. If you got kids, there's going to be another chunk of your time. If you're also Netflixing for 20 hours and you don't have time for homework, I think you can cut down the Netflix a little bit to make time for your homework. Stimpy25 says, I have resorted to a physical stopwatch and pen and paper to track my time, drawing time, to see how long a project takes, because if I pick up my phone to use a tracking app, I get distracted. Sometimes old school is the way to go. Amen. More power to you. Also, yes, it took me a while to grow out of that too. I still used it, but I still used the app, but yeah, it was very hard to put the phone back down. It was. Cheers. But yeah, so whatever method works best for you, and that is understanding that, hey, you're easily distracted by your phone. So creating a solution that doesn't involve your phone is more ideal for you. That is an A+. Absolutely. But yes, so once you analyze where your time is going, then you can sit there and figure out where you can reallocate your time resources. It also tells you if you haven't been maintaining a healthy sleep schedule. If you binge draw until the wee hours of the morning 4 nights a week, guess what? You're gonna burn out. You've got to give yourself enough time to sleep. Also, you're forming habits, and when you don't have a sleep schedule, your brain is not going to have enough time to heal or grow itself. Because guess when it does grow its new pathways? Guess when it does heal itself? When you sleep. If it doesn't know when in the next time it's going to get sleep, it's going to go on reserves and it's going to go into survival mode and not give a damn about what you're doing. So sleep for the sake of saving your progress. And sleep on a schedule so your brain knows what to expect. It is kind of difficult, not going to lie. It definitely doesn't need to be set in stone. But if it's like, okay. So like one of the things that I did while I was in school was I'd say I'd work until about 10 or 11 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, if I was still working, like I'd be like, okay, it's 9 o'clock. I have about an hour or two left to work. And I'd start, I'd get my brain set up to where it's like, okay, we're going to start winding down. We're going to come to a stopping point. And then we're going to save and we're going to shut down. If that was 10, 10:30, 11, that was fine. I wasn't going to be mad at myself for it. I don't need to adhere that closely to a schedule. But then I would go, to bed. And for me, reading before bed is the best way because neurospicy here. If I don't focus on one thing before bed, I'm going to be focusing on 100 things. So reading is one of the ways that I get my brain to slow down. And I'll read for about a half hour, and eventually my brain's like, oh, we're only focusing on one thing. Okay, zonk, out. So, of course, find what works best for you and manage your sleep schedule. But then also, once again, you can make better decisions about where your time is going. And for those who do get sucked into TikTok for hours on end, utilize your phone's digital wellness tracker. They have those in Apple and in Android and in Samsung and in Google. I don't want to hear any rebuttals. They are everywhere. They are mandatory in systems, I think. Either way, they are there. Use them, start getting turn on the notifications for them, and one of the best ones is the weekly progress report. Hey, you used your phone 2 hours less than last week. Yay. Or you can go into them and say, ooh, I spent 3 hours per day on TikTok. Guess I need to start watching how much I TikTok. Yes, you do. But now you know. And then also, do not wait until last minute unless that's how the dice rolled for the week. If you have any power over your decisions and your actions, do not continue to wait until last minute. It is hard to overcome procrastination. Once again, that's getting to the root of your anxiety, to the root of your fears, your fear of underperforming, your uncomfortableness with learning new things. That is all natural. But stop waiting till last minute also for yourself. Because 1, you're not stressed about deadlines. 2, you have room to ask for help if you need it. 3, if you finish early, great. You have time to move on to other things. You're not sitting there pacing around your easel for a week. You actually have time to go and see and get other stuff done. But then also you can absorb more from the classes and from the assignments when you're not rushing last minute. You can actually take time and invest time in the assignments, because that's how you're going to learn how to do the things, is by actually doing the assignments. And if you're rushing last minute, you're like, oh, I just need to get this done. You're not absorbing any of the content and you're not exercising anything from that lesson. You're just getting it done and shoving it off. All right. Task management. I mean, once again, to-do lists, they have such a negative reputation. They really do, especially for people who often take the path of the least resistance. Like, why do I need to get up and do the dishes when they'll be there tomorrow type thing. But one of the best tricks that I've come across is to categorize your tasks differently. So regular tasks, regular tasks are trash, dishes, laundry, feed the kids, walk the dog. Those you can put on a calendar. You can put your little Post-its up, whatever you want to do. But they can be treated differently. They don't even need to necessarily go on your task tracker unless you need the reminders, or that extra little I should probably get up and do the dishes so I can check it off the list. Then there's event tasks. These are things that come up only on occasion, whether it's a lecture at Lightbox that's being streamed online that you want to see, or it's your kid's soccer practice, or it's even a semester. Semesters are temporary. They are only so much time, and they're a dedicated amount of time. So technically they can be classified under events. So your semester start date, your semester end date, when holidays are, those are all event tasks essentially. And so you can do those just on a calendar. If there's any preparation, you can, once again, track them differently or write them down differently. Project tasks. This is the part that gets a lot of artists, is having either multiple projects or not breaking down their project enough on a task list. Like, oh, I need to do a painting of an owl in the woods. Well, guess what? That requires referencing. That requires thumbnailing. That requires color roughs. That requires, figuring out what paints you need to get or have. And if it's a painting you normally do or a painting style you normally do, then you know what brushes you need to pull out and the steps to go through. And then when you get about 90%, do your mind break, step away from it for a second, for a day or two, and then come back to it and finish it out. Whatever your process is, it's good to break them down. So that way, when you have multiple going, you know where in your process each project is. And you know how to check that off and balance these multiple projects. If that includes client checkpoints, if that includes boss approval, or cross-referencing research, making sure that the references you're using or that any resources you're using are, Creative Commons or whatever. But essentially, the purpose of task tracking is not to spend too much time on it, because you want to manage your time. If you're spending 2 hours a day managing tasks, you're spending too much time on it. On average, maybe 30 minutes a day. Once you get the systems implemented, once you figure out what works best for you, spend maybe 30 minutes a day on task and time tracking. Because at that point, you should be well enough to just be able to make your quick jots and you know exactly what's next. But the primary goal of task tracking is for you to have a good understanding of what you have on your plate right now. So then that way, if things pop up or if things shift in priority, you can make more informed decisions on how to use your time or what you should be doing next. Or if something comes up and you need to delegate, you know what you need to delegate. Or if, like I said, if something comes up again, and you need to talk to a specific client, you know at what point or what you need to talk to them about, at what point the project's at. Then if things come up, you get a new project, you're already in the habit of tracking your tasks, whether it's just practice or just classes, you're in the habit of tracking what you need to do, that it's not that hard for you to add client checkpoints in there or client meetings. So believe it or not, your to-do list is not supposed to bully you. But also with whether it's task or time management, whatever systems you implement for yourself or try out to see if it works for you, it is only as good as you keep them up. If you do not keep them up, it doesn't matter what you try or do with the systems. So definitely make an effort, because this better helps you in the professional artist working world, because you know where your time is going. And you know better what you should be working on or what you're going to be working on in next week. Me personally, I really got into ClickUp. Like honestly, I even got like the subscription and stuff like that. I do ClickUp I have ClickUp categories for each segment of my life. So there's, of course, personal and home, doing home improvements like renovating rooms and stuff. Then there's this stuff, workshops and art life help and stuff like that. Then there's my games and my novel writing. And then there's professional gigs and working. So I actually have several different, but I've been effectively tracking my tasks and managing my tasks for so many years that doing something complex like ClickUp isn't as difficult for me. No, it's a rabbit hole worth getting, not ClickUp specifically, but just task and time management is a rabbit hole worth getting into for your own understanding and for your future planning. All right. Include breaks, guys. Make time for breaks. Make time for breaks. Super, super important for every single piece of you. There's a few reasons why we should take breaks, whether it's physical wellness, whether it's mental wellness. Hey, I need to go pee real quick. If you hyper focus, the struggle of forgetting to pee for 5 hours. Like, I should get up and pee. And then 2 hours later, I should get up to pee. 2 hours later. This happens. If you need to set alarms on your phone, then you need to set alarms on your phone. It's where every couple of hours it dings you. You're like, okay, do I need to pee? Yeah, I need to pee. I should probably grab a snack while I'm up and refill my water bottle. Whatever the case is, you need to make it work to where you take breaks, where you actually step away from your desk for a minute. It could be a walk around the block. Doesn't matter. Walk your dog real quick. It could be just to the bathroom in the kitchen. As long as you step up and away from your desk for 5 minutes every couple of hours, that alone is a huge step up in the right direction. So average, taking like a 5-minute break every hour while actively working is effective. And after around 4 to 5 hours, taking a long break, like a meal, like eating, that's, of course, we see that with 9-to-5 jobs with hourly wages too. But there's a reason for that, because that is an effective length of time to take a break and then come back to it. But it's not just for your health. If you are an artist, this also helps your process. So if we hyper focus on a painting and we get it done start to finish in one sit down, and we look at it the next morning, guess what we're going to see? It's going to look vastly different than when we left it last night. We get so enthralled with the process and so in depth and like just elbows deep. We're covered in process. We're covered in paint, that we lose sight of the illusion that we're creating. The illusion of composition, the illusion of depth, the illusion of 3D in a 2D space, which is depth, environment, whatever, color usage, whatever the case is, we lose sight of it if we don't take breaks. So take a brain break from your art. So that's where, like I say, about 90 to 95% of the way through, step away from the painting or the illustration. Step away from it. Don't finish it yet. When you're about to call it finished, don't. Step away, even for a night. Go to bed. Go to bed. Touch it in the morning. Because then when you come back and your mind is refreshed, you'll see that, oh, I should push that back a bit. Oh, there's a tangent here. Oh, the hair isn't flowing quite the way I want it to. And you see more things that you would have otherwise missed if you remained blind to the process. And also, days off do matter. Even if you get the time off, let's say you get the time off, you had better use your day off wisely, in the sense that, because I know people, and I am very guilty of it, of working consistently day after day after day after day after day. Guess what? Guess what? That's how you burn out. That is the quickest way to burn out. Even if you enjoy what you do, you will still burn yourself out by working day after day after day. So making the most out of time off, whether it's a half a day or a full weekend, still practice, still get some time in if you want. But for the most part, you need to turn your brain off from work. So yes, preventing burnout, very similar to how art block happens, except over an extended period of time. But once again, it still has these root causes. So not taking enough breaks, not getting enough rest, or getting yourself on a sleep schedule, not spending your time off properly, not playing with your craft enough. If you're all work and no play, guess what? You're not going to have a good time. And then also, if you're surrounded by toxic people and not getting away from toxic people, just being around them. If anyone who's been around a toxic person, and I say toxic in the sense of you do feel drained when you're around them. If you don't have like a support system or an escape from them, being around them will drain you and burn you out. Procrastination is another way to burn out, because what you'll do is you'll procrastinate to the point things will just keep piling up, and then it's now extremely overwhelming to the point where, what is the point, is the question you ask yourself. And then having expectations that are either too high or too rigid. You don't know everything yet. You don't know what it's going to be like to work for Magic the Gathering or any of that. You dream of it, and it is a goal of yours, but you don't know exactly what it's like to be inside the company. So any expectations you set, make sure they're fluid to receiving new information. And because the reality is, you're going to learn a lot more when you finally go into a job about the job. It's not until you actually start doing it that you actually start learning about it. And that's where a lot of people learn that art is a lot of work. Let's see here. Corner Lady says, what about when you've got a time-consuming day job and the weekends are the only time when you get to work on your craft freely? So define time-consuming day. How many hours do you invest in this job a day? That's the first question, and then I'll answer your question. While she's answering that, also not giving yourself self-depreciation and self-doubt. I mean, once again, here it has come up. When you don't give yourself enough credit for reaching milestones. I have worked with students where I see them growing. I see them grasping the concepts of human anatomy. Like, you know what? Your lines are still wonky, but your proportions are looking better. And they're like, yeah, well, I mean, still my lines are... Give yourself that credit. Give yourself that win. Those little wins along the way for those milestones. Be more compassionate towards yourself, because those little wins are going to be like, hey, what I'm doing is making a difference. What I am doing it matters. If you do burn out, there are some burnouts that are just traumatic for the soul, and that it's very unfortunate when that happens. But for the most part, burnouts are recoverable. That sometimes take a week off, take 2 weeks off if you're able to, or like being between jobs, being between contracts, you feel yourself burning out and a contract ended, don't pick another one up for another couple weeks, and give yourself that time to just rest and recharge, and grab a bestie when they're free. After a little bit, you'll slowly start to revisit what you enjoy most about your craft. Is it drawing animals? Is it finding cute animal references and putting your own spin on it? Is it interpreting something in your style? Whatever the case is, just slowly start to revisit it. And what you find is eventually you want to start going back to work. And that's how you know you're getting out of, you're recovering from burnout. Okay, so 9 to 5, but the afternoons and evenings is when I get in the zone for doing most of the work, so I can still be working until 11. Yes. Actually, totally samesies. Afternoon and evenings for me are also my most productive. So that does consume a lot of your day. That does consume a lot of your energy in the day. And, it's not to say that, waking up at 7, getting an hour or 2 in of other work is fine. But what you can do is you can split your weekends up. Either do Saturday or Sunday, to where you take that as an active day off. Or you can do half days and be like, you know what? I'm going to spend my whole morning on me, and then around 3 or 4, then I'll do some practice. Then I'll do some work that I want to do. Then I'll finally work on this project that I want to do. But also, you don't need to set yourself a time. If you want to play on your day off, you do it whenever. You're still practicing your craft. You're doing something you want to do, and that recharges your batteries. That is the important thing. But for actually turning your brain off and getting away from your workspace, definitely designate some time over the weekend to do that. Whether it's reading a bed, but oh my god, reading a book on the couch, on your favorite stuffy, or in bed, or whatever the case is. Oh, hello, Exo Hazard. I'm glad you could finally make it. Oh my gosh, it's been going for a while. I did not expect this to take so long, so I do apologize for that, but at the same time, we are covering so much ground. Speaking of, all right, so let's talk about goals for a second. Goals come in a couple of different varieties. The first one is the long term. This is the one that you should start with. These are your ultimate dreams. These are the big goals. These are the ones that are not going to happen overnight. If that's working at Wizards of the Coast, if that's, or whatever, or Magic the Gathering, or Bungie, or Blizzard, or whatever this huge dream, like this is the core of why you got into art. That is your long-term goal. Also set goals that may not necessarily be, hey, working at this company, where a long-term goal would be mastering task management, or being able to work for 4 days, play for 2 days, and take 1 day off. Have these goals that are going to take a little bit to get up to. Once you figure out what these long-term goals are, then you can start breaking them down step by step. Snippy 25, we have about 5 or 6 slides left. So we're about 20% left. And I promise I won't go into too much more tangents. But then also this will be available on YouTube as well. Twitch for post-viewing and YouTube for posterity purposes. So if you do need to dip out, you are welcome to rewatch it later as well. But yeah, I'd say maybe about 20% left. And then we'll be open for AMA and any follow-up questions from there. I'm glad they're helpful tangents. That makes my self-doubt go away a little bit. Trust me, I was not panicking for 2 hours before this. Is this really going to help people? All right. So yes, figure out your long-term goals first. Then it is important to break them down step by step. So that way you know what you need to work on. You know that you have these smaller goals to get to. When we say step by step, what we literally mean is stair step by stair step by stair step. You're not going to be able to, we can't all jump like Hulk to the top of the mountain. We got to take it one step at a time. And breaking down your long-term goals will prevent you from burning out and will prevent you from losing motivation, because you'll be reaching these milestones along the way. Aesthetic Derelict says, unlike art, these are the tangents we like. Oh my god, I feel like, his name escapes me right now. The professor from Fairly Odd Parents, where he just starts freaking out and spazzing. Oh my god, there's a tangent! In my head. Every time I see tangent in art, that's what plays in my head. Just replays like a GIF. I swear to the highest. So anyway, yes. So break down your long-term goals into shorter goals or milestones, into these steps. Because it is going to take a while to get to those goals, but also set smaller goals. Set these milestones that may contribute to your long-term goal but aren't directly towards your long-term goal. This can be mastering proportions, or improving your line work, or learning how to use digital art. Yes, Crocker, thank you. Nerds for the win. Yes, and these milestones will help you get to your day-to-day plans, to your task management. Long-term goals, steps to your long-term goals, and then break down your short terms. Break down your milestones. Hey, I want to get better at proportions. Well, guess what? The challenging part of your practice should now be proportions. So you can say, hey, for the next couple of weeks, let me work on proportions. And then after that, I'll tackle my line work. Or after that, I'll work on hands. Don't be afraid to get into the nitty-gritty details when it comes to setting short-term goals and milestones and incorporating them into your task management. Also, if you aren't sure what the steps are, if you aren't sure what your next step should be towards a goal, ask a mentor or your teacher or peer that you know that is in the industry, or even if you don't know, and go to a lecture that someone is talking about going into the art career and stuff, and ask them your questions. There are resources out there for you to be able to figure out what your next step should be. Don't be afraid to ask for help, especially in this situation when you need to figure out what you should be doing right now to get to where you want to be. There are people out there that are where you want to be and can help you get to where you want to be. They might not say, hey, listen, but pretty close. All right. So for 2D art specifically, this came up once again quite a bit in the survey. For 2D art specifically, I also, when working with students, the foundations was not stressed enough. It really wasn't, because foundations like learning how to draw the human figure, working on perspective, that is something that you should do most for your practice, like every day. It shouldn't just be confined to a few weeks in the semester. No, this is something that you should continuously be practicing. So with 2D art, all art is visual communication. Styles in art are just different languages. That's all they are, just different visual languages. But like languages, they follow structure. They follow communication techniques. They transcend accents and, well, essentially transcend mediums. It doesn't matter what medium or what method of publication, art is still understood because it is its own visual language. So don't confine yourself to a style, and definitely don't use this as my style as an excuse that you want to see closed-minded tunnel vision. Oh, this is my style. I'm not going to try that. So that's the first thing. Exohazard says, for real, so many people out there lacking in foundations because they think they're one and done with foundation. No. Art is closer to physical fitness in the sense of you have to grind every day to maintain your muscle memory, your hand-eye coordination, to keep your everything in working order, than it is to IKEA instructions. Too many people treat the foundations like, understanding anatomy, like IKEA instructions. Like they read through it and they build it once and that's it. No, because even though you understand proportions and you understand anatomy, you can still lose the ability to communicate proper proportions and proper anatomy. So people that, artists, we see this with artists that tend to do just profiles. We ask them to, do a full character body, and their proportions are off because they don't regularly practice human figure drawing and practicing proportions. So do not be embarrassed. Do not be shy or shame about doing life drawing. If someone shames you for doing life drawing, they don't know shit about art. Just throwing that out there. Speaking of toxic people. So life study, draw from references, build up your foundations and keep them up regularly with practice. That's how you're going to get better at 2D art, and that's how you're going to stay good. And I've seen this from time to time. There are some artists or people that are like, oh, did you reference? That's cheating. No. Tracing is cheating. Referencing is not. If you look at... So a couple of my instructors at the school were illustrators for the old school movie posters. The Indiana Jones that looked like it was out of airbrush and colored pencil. They used nearly 100 references for each of those posters. And that's just one. They did multiple versions of these posters. So I love what one of them said, where he said, to study from one is stealing. To study from many is referencing. Do not discount reference boards or mood boards. Invest the time into doing reference boards or mood boards. Or as another artist that I know says, we actually rarely draw from imagination. We reference. If it's a dragon, guess what? we pull up pictures of crocodiles and lizards, you know, and bat wings. Yes, all the best artists reference, because all the best artists know, just because they know what a dragon should look like or what they want the dragon to look like, doesn't mean they know how to draw it. They know it's covered in scales, but what should the scales look like? How do they draw the scales? What scales do they want to use? Always reference. To have fun with referencing too, and like, don't be afraid to put 5 different kinds of scales. You never know which one you're going to gravitate to. So yeah, daily practice is your lifeline with drawing and growing as a growing artist. It is an absolute must. What about starting off with tracing some parts, but then elaborating on it with the original ideas and other references? So, tracing can become a crutch. It's not necessarily entirely bad when you're trying to grow your skills. There are things that sometimes called style studies, where like, since I threw out Bruce Timm earlier, drawing Bruce Timm's characters, where or his, studying his style, where sometimes tracing will help you learn how to communicate the decisions they make. So with style studies, sometimes we say, trace for 25%, and then the rest emulate. Pull up pictures of models and characters and whatever, and emulate his style. Draw that in his style. There's less thinking involved when you trace. And that's the part of it. Thank you for putting it into words. That's the part that becomes a crutch, is you hand off those decisions where you could be analyzing and okay, and learning to make those decisions and going through that process yourself. All right. Also, yes, tracing can make it so you overlook form. Actually, on the note of tracing, fun story from my first class in my first assignment in art school. Mind you, I had 0 previous art experience before I walked into the school. So the first assignment was 3 sketchbook pages. And I was like, this is great. It could be anything, and so like I drew some flowers, I drew a dragon, and kind of left it at that. And then I forget what I did for the 3rd page. But I felt so out of my depth when I looked at all my classmates' homework. There was Batmans, there was Naruto's, there was drawings that belonged on the front of comic book covers as sketchbook pages. I was immediately like, I just stepped into the wrong profession. I am like way out of my league. And then the next assignment, the very next week, the instructor's like, do 3 sketchbook pages without copying. It's like, the same people who threw out these amazing comic book covers and these amazing Batmans and this amazing anime could not draw from life for the life of them. That, like, we saw stick figures coming from some of them because they handed off those decisions. They never learned why you make those decisions. So, study from life, always. Once you understand how to draw from life, you can understand how to abbreviate and exaggerate portions that you want. All right, moving along. Points on portfolios. This is one of the hardest things to talk about because it is so variable to the job that they're looking to fill, to the project at hand, to the company brand, to whatever the case is. So it really is no one perfect portfolio. It is very dependent on the company, the open position, what they're looking for, what their goals as a company are. So be comfortable with putting a portfolio together, specifically for a specific position or a specific company, or a specific job type, because that's what's going to help you. So I, like I said, I've been fortunate to have been an art director and production manager for a couple years now, and I've had to do hiring. I've had to do interviews with artists and, go through the pile and have to turn people down. That I could never, I never got used to that. It definitely, there were times where it just was like, I wish I could just hire them all, but I couldn't. Either way, it was kind of obvious when someone used a cookie cutter portfolio or used a, essentially copy and pasted their portfolio from a different company. So usually what I've learned thus far, and what insights I have from other people who have contributed to this workshop, get comfortable with putting a portfolio together. Have the vast majority of it, so like 70% of it, be geared towards the position you're looking to fill, towards the need you're looking to meet. If that's, one of my besties absolutely adores Destiny and wants to go work at Bungie, 70% of his portfolio should be Bungie style art. And if he wants to work in the concept art department, it should be concept art pages. That should be the vast majority, because they need to see different iterations of the thing that they're trying to look to get done. And then have 30% of what else you can do, or what else you like doing. Like, hey, I can do concept art, and here's 50 different elves, whatever. But also I can do environment art. So have, just a small section of additional things that you can do and that you also like to do. And then the last piece should be one of your favorites. Should be one of your strongest pieces, because when they're done looking at your portfolio, that's the taste that you're going to leave in their mouth. So 70% the focus, 30% what you're capable of, or at least similar to the focus, and then end on a high note. But one of the biggest things is, do not put anything in your portfolio that you do not want to do again. I cannot stress that enough. I actually hired somebody for a piece in their portfolio. I'm like, hey, this is what we're looking for. And they started wavering, and it's like, so what's going on? And they're like, oh, I don't really want to do this type of art. And it's like, why was it in your portfolio then? Why was this in your skill showcase? Because if it wasn't, I would have used you for a different project. Don't put anything in your portfolio that you don't want to do again, because it just may be what you're hired to do. Now, if you're desperate and you're willing to do anything, hey, by all means, go for it. But just be mindful of that. But if you did your art education right, if you did your skill development right, and if you're in art for all the right reasons, this will be a non-issue, because you'll enjoy it all. Except tangents. All right. Got a couple more slides here, and then we'll open for AMA. Speaking on portfolios and the professional world. So we were talking a little bit about time management, about, being able to analyze your time and see where your time is going so you know where to improve. For the love of everything that is holy, please be on time to meetings. Even if so like me personally, if I'm not 10 minutes early, I'm 5 minutes late. Like, I personally cannot stand being late for a meeting, because everyone that in my head is waiting on me. But also, you're respecting who you're meeting with. I've had people that were late for interviews. I've had people that were late for mentor meetings. And sometimes, once again, there's excusable reasons and then there's excuses. Did you really try to get here on time? Was there really a traffic stop? Or did you pace around the room anxiously and lose track of time? Or did you forget to set an alarm? Or, is this something that you really want to do? There's a lot of things that go on in a conversation in an interview where the interviewee has not shown up for 20 minutes. Make an effort to be on time to meetings. Whether it's a job interview, whether it's a weekly check-in interview, whether it's a client meeting, whether you're meeting with your teacher, your instructor, punctuality is one of your biggest assets. All right. Communicating effectively or at all. Not communicating your needs with your workplace. How are they going to know how to best fit your needs? To best accommodate your needs if you don't talk about it with your boss. If you don't ask questions, they're gonna assume that you know what to do. If you don't know what to do, you need to ask questions. Please don't be afraid to ask questions. If you need clarification on something, it does not look bad on you to ask questions if you need clarification. Not at all. But then also, if you are going to be late to a meeting, hey, I'm just now leaving the doctor's office. I'll be home in about 20 minutes. I'll be about 10 minutes late to the meeting. Whatever, still communicate, to whatever the case is. Just communicate it. Over communication is never a bad thing. Under communication will cause a lot of problems. One of the things I say on that, if your boss sends you a message and you don't respond, they will fill in the blank and not with you. Yes. A lot of the times, a manager's job, the point of a project manager or team manager is to make sure that a job gets done. If someone does not show up for work, they need to find someone who is willing to work. It's not necessarily reflected on your ability to work. When you are at work, great. But if you don't show up for work, they're still going to need to fill that in that position. So definitely be responsive if you're reached out to. All right. And then, all right, Stimpy25, it was great to have you, and I hope you have a great rest of the evening. And then, of course, you can catch up with the rest tomorrow when it's all recorded and posted. And definitely, best of luck with everything. Happy level ups. All right. If you do, so let's say, applying for Bungie. If you do get turned down from the position, don't let that dissuade you from trying again. They hey, we got another project. Hey, we need another concept artist. Go for it again. Go for it multiple times. Still be building up your skills. Still be getting constructive feedback from your peers and your mentors. But one no is not an absolute. One no is not the end of the road. Also, still apply for places that aren't, this specific company. Still apply for jobs outside of that company. But don't let it, don't sit there and think that just because you got told no for your first application that it's the end of the line. It's really not. Like I said, there were times where it was really hard for me to turn people down for roles that we were filling. And for some of them, I was looking at 30 or 40 portfolios, and it's how do you pick one from so many capable people? And of course, there were some that didn't have focused portfolios, where it's they don't quite, maybe they were misguided in putting together a portfolio, or maybe they don't know what they want to do, or maybe they're spread too thin, or whatever the case. Or there were some that it's hey, we're hiring for working on this, actually true story, this very cute, chibi-like, very kawaii project. And someone sent in a Ghost in the Shell, style anime portfolio. And it's this is great, but not for the project we're looking for. So don't be dissuaded by no's. No's are going to happen more often than yeses. If you stop at the first no, you're never going to get to your first yes. And I had to say no. That was the hard part. All right, so some final thoughts before we open up the floor for questions and finals. And I do have a big announcement. Don't forget to drink some water. Actually, I do need that. Seriously, you cannot get better at art. You cannot take care of the art if you do not take care of yourself first. That is a concrete rule. You must take care of the artist to take care of the art. Also, remember, you are learning and growing. Give yourself that room to do so. Give yourself that wiggle room that you are going to make mistakes. And it's okay. You're going to learn from those mistakes. You're going to implement what you learn in the next time. And you're going to keep building like that until you get to where you want to be, to where you don't feel like you're learning anymore. You feel like you're actually on top of your pile and your skills are where they want to be. Still be growing them. Still be learning them. Also, your dreams will not happen overnight. So don't get discouraged if you wake up tomorrow and motivation went and took a break and you get a no from Ubisoft. Focus on your milestones. Focus on taking one step at a time. And ask for help if you need it. Ask for help if you need it. That is of pop culture, that is the one thing that irks me the most. Is hearing how often people are afraid to ask for help because people will think less of them, or they'll get turned down, or whatever the case is. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I can guarantee 95% of art mentors and professional artists out there are actually not douchebags. Right? Some of them may have a lot on their plate and may not respond, but point is, there are people out there that are open for help. And actually, on that note, I am now one of them. 2 seconds. I am proud to announce that I am opening up for business to the public. Officially. So essentially what I am open to doing is being your art coach or being your art life mentor. Exactly everything we were talking about. What I am open to doing is kind of where I was student success mentor. I work with you both on your skills and on your soft skills, your time management, your task management, whatever it is you need to improve on to get to where you want to be. We work on a game plan, and I help see you through the hard parts of building these new habits, of getting in these grooves. And because this is such an exciting thing in time, there we go. If you use code 2023 MMS, 2023 MMS, you will get 42% off of any of my booking services. So I am open to working with every one of you, everybody one-on-one if you need. I mean, I'm also going to be writing my book, so my time will be filled no matter what. But I am definitely opening my door for mentoring people one-on-one again. I am super, super excited about this and for this. So that's a thing. Super happy about it. And sorry, I'm not much of a salesperson. That is not a skill that I want to develop. All right. But anyway, I am going to just push that off to the side there. All right. So for those of you that are still with us, because we really did go pretty long, this is a time for questions too. While you are thinking of additional questions, if you have any on any of the topics we discussed, I do have a couple of questions that were in the survey. I'm not sure if I elaborated enough on. So one of the questions was, how do you get that first job as a freelancer, and do the jobs keep coming? When it comes to freelance work, it's not as simple as applying for an open job position. So there's a combination of being findable on the internet and still applying for job positions. There are also agencies, illustration agencies, or freelance agencies for concept artists or comic artists or whatever the case is. Find those agencies and sign up with them, because they will help find you work as well. There's a very broad one called Aquent, AQUENT. Hold on, let me put it in the chat. That is very broad in terms of art careers and stuff like that, where sometimes they do have environment artists, sometimes they, sometimes it's all paperwork stuff. But either way, research agencies and they'll get you started. The most important thing is to always be putting yourself out there, always be updating your portfolio as if you are still looking for a job, even if your plate is full, because that consistency is what's going to keep the jobs coming. If you slow down on that, you're going to get breaks in time where you don't have a job. All right. When you lost focus with a personal project or drawing, how do you regain that focus? We have a unfinished art pile for a reason. Yeah. Sometimes you burn out on individual projects and it's good to put them down. There have been some projects where I pick it up again years later and I'm like, you know what, I'm just fucking redoing it. I'm just redoing it all. But if you start losing focus in the middle, definitely take a break. Definitely take a break. Also, when you go to return, revisit your references or revisit finding more references. And sometimes that'll be like a miniature spark of inspiration to keep you going in the project. Corner Lady asks, are you creating reverse job posts a thing? Or are creating reverse job posts a thing? Have you seen successful examples of that? Yes, classifieds. Hey, I'm available for work. They're just like agencies. There are classified websites. LinkedIn is one of those to where, hey, I'm open for work. That little banner, and it also, when you apply that, it changes the algorithm quite a bit, to where someone says, hey, I'm looking for an illustrator, and it'll first list illustrators open for work. But yeah, classifieds are definitely a thing. Also, you can definitely, like, it's kind of an old school tactic, but sometimes it still does work, to where even if you don't see a job posting, you still send an email to HR and say, hey, I notice you don't have any open job postings right now, but I wanted to put my hat in with you guys. I love what you guys do. I would love to contribute to a project. Here's my portfolio. Absolutely. Oh no! Hold on. I don't know when they end. You let me know when you get back. Alright, I guess while that's rolling, alright. Isolation. Okay. Isolation. This person says, I don't have finances to travel out to events like Lightbox, GDC, etc. So I feel I have to work much harder to find the people to talk to, job searching, and learning from other like-minded professionals. This can feel very frustrating. Yes, isolation. As so many people have learned in these past couple of years, isolation is a major challenge. It is a very extreme challenge that it is difficult. You know, we are tactile creatures. In-person events, talking to people face to face, it does make a difference to do that. But once again, we're not always able to do that. Also, we live in a day and an age where virtual contact is very resourceful. So to battle isolation, definitely find communities, whether it's Discord servers or Facebook groups, or some artists and professionals have their own websites and blogs. Whatever the case is, you can become active in those. Make connections, make friends. When it says, "Hey, introduce yourself," and then post a portfolio in there or whatever you are trying to do. You can include in that introduction. It helps to not be shy. When you're shy, you're afraid of making a bad impression. You're afraid of people laughing at you, whatever the case is. But for the most part, isolation is kind of difficult. That is no lie. That is something that is normal to struggle with. But yes, online communities, online blogs, online events, and then hit local events too. I say that out of experience. Hit local events. Whether it's the local art district or the annual anime convention or whatever does come close enough to you, and that maybe you could get a ticket for one day, or that are free. So art districts tend to be free. That like here in Denver, we have the River North Art District. We also have the Santa Fe Art District. To where every first Friday, all of the studios on the block open up their doors and you're able to walk from place to place to place. When you find an artist of similar interests, those are the ones you want to connect with, because they may have professional connections. Connect. Even if it is online, even if it is in blogging or chat rooms, still connect. Anissa, are you back yet? All right. Let's do one more before seeing if she's back, but let's see here. Oh, goodness. All right, let me do one more of the questions. So for mitigating symptoms of ADHD/ADD, everything we covered definitely still applies to those challenges. So definitely, especially review the mechanics of a habit, because even though we got some pretty wonky wiring, the way our brain grows is still pretty dang similar. So let me see here. So Corner Lady, do you have another question? I'm trying to pick out a good one for the last one for this. Okay, I think I found a good one to do. Okay. All right, while you are typing that question, I'm going to cover one last question from the survey. I feel like I want to do so much and do it all really well, but my actual performance always falls below my expectations. I want to Hermione Granger my projects, but I'm more like Seamus blowing everything up. All right, this is where adjusting our expectations is going to benefit us. Because yes, we want to, we want to pull out the brush and create a masterpiece. We want to swipe the pencil and have this cohesive and beautiful drawing laying underneath it. But the reality is it's going to take us a while till we get to that level. And in order to not burn out, to not crash our drive, it's important to find those milestones, to figure out those milestones and those achievements along the way. Find your small wins to keep you stepping forward. So adjust your expectations a little bit. Accept that your drawings are not going to meet your expectations yet. Like, still, you can keep them up there because that's a goal. That is your skill goal. But don't allow yourself to get frustrated or discouraged because you're not there yet. What you can do is compare one to the other and say, you know what? My lighting, the way I'm painting edges on my characters, that needs adjustment. Yeah, definitely. Print out artists and artwork that are your skill goals. So once again, they're your GPS. But it is, what you're experiencing is, we said it before, it is normal, it is healthy, but you can burn yourself out unintentionally by continuing to over-expect of yourself and not allowing yourself that room to grow, and discouraging yourself through your unmet expectations. All right. Will your coaching service cover balancing art development with self-promotion on social media without burning out? Absolutely. Yes. So between, going into a little bit of my history, all the years that I've managed, that I've mentored other students, and I've managed students and managed artists, and then also worked, for a decade prior to going into the art industry, there was a lot of similarities, and creative problems require creative solutions. I personally love finding solutions, love finding creative solutions, and love taking unique variables and adjusting those solutions. So that's where I'm very excited to kind of open up this business, because I can help you guys on these different levels and be essentially your guidance. Like, okay, here's where you are. Here's where you want to be. How do we get, okay, you want to be point A to point M. All right, let's start with B. All right, C. And I can help guide you through where you are to where you want to be, however you need that. If you need that with help in self-promotion, if you need that help, with balancing art development or work life, mitigating burnout, even just being there for you, being a person that understands work and art, I am absolutely 100% open to everything. That's what we call it, art life help. Doesn't necessarily have to be art either. If someone is in engineering or whatever the case is and they would like work life help, whatever, doesn't matter. I am here and I'm open for business. But yes, also starting and developing a new business, the technicalities of starting a business vary state to state, county to county, and so of course, that will require research and stuff like that, but the concepts behind business planning and managing businesses, stuff like that, I am absolutely happy to help you with. So with that being said, it was wonderful to have everyone on. I do apologize, that went way longer than expected, but I am glad it was all helpful. And then, so to iterate, I am officially open for business. You can go in and book appointments directly on the website, which I just think is super, super helpful. There we go. Yep, so it will allow you to book appointments in my availability windows. So you can pick a time that works best for you and it slots you for that. And then if you use the code 2023 MMS, that will be good through the end of March. You will receive 42% off all services. And you are very welcome, Corner Lady. I hope to see you soon, virtually. But yeah, with that being said, I hope you all stay safe, stay authentically you, and happy level ups, everyone. Like, your challenges now do not what is hard today doesn't have to be hard tomorrow. So I wish you all the best. I look forward to hearing from you guys, and let me know if this kind of content you guys want to see more of, because I've been kind of debating on what I should do on TikTok, stuff like that. So let me know in the comments of these videos what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to hear more of, if you guys want me to do live talks from like this, but maybe like just open talking instead of presentation. Whatever the case, let me know, and yeah, stay safe, stay nerdy. See y'all on the next one.